My wife has revealed that she is pregnant. However, I am aware that I am not the biological father due to my infertility. Consequently, I have been playing along with the situation. I married my wife, who is 33 years old, 38 months ago. We had been dating for 3 years prior to our marriage. During that period, she was more inclined towards marriage than I was. However, I agreed to the marriage around a year ago, simply to make her happy. We then began trying to have a baby. Once more, this was at my wife's insistence. We experienced significant challenges during the period we were attempting to conceive. When my mental health reached a point of crisis, I decided to undergo testing. During this time, my wife's behavior became increasingly hostile, and I attempted to address her conduct. However, my efforts proved ineffective. The news was overwhelming, and I was informed by the doctors that I was sterile a few days after the test. This was a devastating blow, even though I had not initially considered having children. I had begun to imagine my life as a father, and I was eager to become one. To learn that I would never be able to be a father was the most. The news was devastating at the time, but the worst was yet to come. I have been attempting to muster the courage to inform my wife that I was the cause of our inability to conceive. However, I was fearful of her reaction. She had already been so unkind to me that I could not imagine how she would respond when she learned that what she desired was. It is unlikely that this will ever occur, so I waited for a few days after I had received the results of my test to inform my wife. However, she was the one who ultimately revealed the information to me 4 days after I had learned that I was sterile. She sat me down and informed me that she had some important news to share with me, and I was extremely frightened. I was under the impression that she had somehow discovered my sterility. However, she informed me that she was pregnant. I was profoundly disconcerted by this revelation, yet I was relieved that she was unaware of my true feelings. She immediately began to celebrate, and I attempted to join in on her joy. I attempted to reassure her, but the very next day, I underwent another test to confirm my sterility. The results were once again the same. I was perplexed because, if I was not the father, then my wife was most certainly engaging in infidelity. The medical procedures that she needed to conceive artificially, the procedures were costly, and as the sole income earner in the couple, I was the only one who could afford them. My wife was therefore unable to undergo the necessary treatments without first obtaining my consent. The mere thought of her infidelity was so disturbing that I did not take any action for several days. Meanwhile, my wife planned a full-blown party to announce her pregnancy. She seemed genuinely happy, but I was consumed by a sense of devastation. I was unable to share my distress with anyone, including my own family, because I felt that this was a deeply personal matter that should be kept private. She then proceeded to organize a full-fledged party to announce her pregnancy. She appeared genuinely happy, yet I was equally devastated. I was compelled to uncover the truth behind this situation. I kept the matter private, even from my own family, as it was too personal and uncomfortable to share. I was unable to inform my wife of my suspicions because the timeline had passed, and I was uncertain of the identity of the child's father. If I confronted her, she might have left me, and I would have remained in the dark. Fortunately, I discovered the truth on the day of the party. Many people, including our families, friends, and colleagues, were in attendance. Additionally, she extended an invitation to one of our neighbors, a young man who resides across the street from us. Our neighbor, aged 27, is a model and, as a result, is considerably more attractive than I am. In fact, I am not the only person who believes this to be the case. He is still attempting to establish himself in the modeling world, having recently moved in with his aunt, who owns the house he lives in order to be closer to the city. Given that his own family lives at a considerable distance, my wife has always had a soft spot for this individual. She would prepare meals for him and his aunt when he initially relocated. He has even visited our home for dinner on a few occasions, during which we discussed his work. He is articulate and well-read, and he shares a common interest with my wife, both majoring in literature. They quickly formed a strong connection upon their initial encounter. I had never harbored any ill will towards the individual in question, as he appeared to be a generally agreeable person. Moreover, I trusted my wife's judgment. However, when he entered the house on the day of our party, my wife's demeanor underwent a noticeable transformation. She approached him with great enthusiasm and the two embraced for a considerably longer duration than they had with any of the other guests. It was evident to me, but not to others, that they shared a deeper connection. I was uncertain as to the nature of the relationship between my wife and the other man, but I needed to confirm my suspicions. I excused myself to go to the living room, but instead went to the bedroom and accessed my wife's laptop. I had previously been able to view her phone while she was asleep, a few days after she had informed me that she was pregnant. However, accessing her laptop proved to be more challenging, as she was constantly monitoring it. On each occasion that I inquired as to her activities, she would avert her gaze from the screen and inform me that she was engaged in the composition of a novel that had been in progress for several months. I respected her privacy, as I had genuinely believed that she was engaged in the writing of a novel. However, the situation had changed, and I was now convinced that there was no novel in progress. Instead, I suspected that the excuse of writing a novel was merely a pretext for concealing the contents of her laptop. I retrieved the laptop from her, and thankfully, there was no password or other security measure in place. After some digging, I was able to find another email account in addition to the one she was using. I switched to that account and began going through the emails that had been sent and received. The emails were full of confessions of love from my wife and also from the other man, our neighbor. I recognized the email address since he was using it. His real name was revealed, and in the more recent emails, she informed him that she was pregnant. He was upset about this, so the male stopped communicating for a while, presumably to end the relationship. However, my wife was not willing to let him go, and eventually, I received the most distressing email of them all, in which she informed him that she had consulted with a friend of hers, a lawyer, who would assist her in filing for divorce. The birth of the child provided the impetus for her to attempt to persuade me to have a child with her. Her objective was to secure both alimony and child support following the dissolution of our marriage. This would enable her to relocate with our neighbor and commence a new life. I was profoundly distressed by this revelation and still experience a sense of nausea whenever I recall that email. I was able to overcome this initial reaction and resume my work. I was overcome with a sense of nausea and returned to work. I took several photographs of the email on my mobile phone before shutting it down and returning it to its original location. I was less concerned about the infidelity and more disgusted by my wife's manipulative tactics. Cheating was one thing, but attempting to deceive me into having a child with her and then forcing me to pay exorbitant sums of money so that she could fund her lavish lifestyle with her struggling boyfriend was another. She was so psychotic, and the cherry on top was that she was such a great actress that I hadn't suspected a thing yet. Her happiness was almost disturbing, but I was so angry about all of this that I decided to go the extra mile and take my revenge. I made up my mind to play along, and then I dropped the bomb on her when she was least expecting it. There was no way I was going to let her just get away with it without feeling the hurt, betrayal, and frustration that I had been experiencing when I discovered her dishonesty led me to take actions that could be perceived as extreme. For the next 9 months, I endeavored to fulfill the role of a perfect husband and father. It was challenging to acknowledge that she was lying to me while simultaneously maintaining a facade of happiness. However, as she continued to deceive me, my resolve to see this through grew stronger. I attended every meeting. With her doctor, I ensured that she took all her vitamins on time and was the best husband that one could ask for. Finally, a few days ago, my wife went into labor. I was extremely nervous because it wouldn't be in my situation, but I put that all aside and took her to the hospital all by myself. I had already called her parents, but not mine, since I didn't want them present in case things became too dramatic. Her parents had to drive for an hour to get to the hospital, so we had some time to ourselves. I chose to inform her of the situation once she was safely inside the room. I informed her that I was going to go out and call our neighbor so he could be present during the birth. She appeared taken aback and stuttered a bit while saying that there was no need for that and that she did not want a stranger in the room during the birth process. I smiled back at her and showed her the results of my fertility test, along with the divorce papers, since I had filed for divorce just a few days before her due date. I had ensured that I carried these documents with me on that day. She reviewed the materials, still looking confused. I then explained to her that I would not be able to impregnate her, even if I had wanted to do so. I informed her that the baby was not mine. I then proceeded to tell her about the emails that I had discovered. Upon accessing her secret account, she finally grasped the situation. The expression on her face was priceless as I exited the room and she struggled to find words. I considered the possibility that I might need to remain in the hospital as well, given the intensity of my heartbeat when I finally exited the room and called our neighbor to inform him that my wife was in labor. I did not even wait for his response and terminated the call. I then proceeded to my vehicle and awaited the arrival of my wife's family. Upon observing the approach of her father's vehicle, I promptly departed the scene. I even terminated the functionality of my mobile phone as a precautionary measure. I subsequently drove for a considerable distance until I reached a motel situated outside the city limits. I had already prepared my belongings and stored them in the vehicle's boot, ensuring that I had all the necessary resources at my disposal. I spent the remainder of the day engaged in leisure activities, including watching television and consuming alcohol. I consumed beer and engaged in various activities to distract myself from my thoughts. I retired for the night with a sense of tranquility, having completed this phase of my life. The following morning, I awoke and finally activated my phone. I received numerous messages from my wife and neighbor, which I chose not to read. However, I did review messages from my parents and brother. It appeared that my wife had contacted them when she was unable to reach me. I decided to contact them as well. I contacted my parents and informed them of my imminent return. I also requested that my brother join me, as I wished to provide an exhaustive account of the circumstances to them. I proceeded to my parents' residence, where I found my brother already present. They appeared perplexed and somewhat disgruntled, which was understandable given that they had assumed I had missed the birth of my child. However, I proceeded to explain the situation. I then proceeded to elucidate the entire narrative to them, articulating the rationale behind my actions. By the time I had concluded, they were rendered speechless. I anticipated a barrage of inquiries and accusations, yet none materialized. My father's sole remark was his hope that no further adverse events would transpire. The others did not proffer any additional comments, suggesting a prevailing atmosphere of composure. This incident occurred several days ago, and while my family has remained largely tacit, my wife has been relentless in her accusations. She has been attempting to contact me via telephone and text message since my departure, yet I have not responded. Even my neighbor sent me a message a few hours ago, stating that my wife was visibly distressed and suggesting that we set aside our differences for her benefit and attempt to resolve the matter with her. I am astonished at the audacity of these individuals, still attempting to engage with me and portraying this as a trivial issue that I am overly concerned about. In addition to this, he mentioned that my wife had begun to rekindle her feelings for me during her pregnancy, which had been a surprise to both of us. He advised me to at least consider giving our marriage another chance. However, I rejected this suggestion, pointing out that if she had truly fallen in love with me again, why was my neighbor still in the picture? I am unsure why they believe I am so naive. My wife is upset, but I am powerless to do anything about it. She is primarily angry that I have been aware of the situation from the beginning. The beginning of the narrative concerns the protagonist's decision to remain with his wife throughout her pregnancy, despite the knowledge that the child was not his. He was also aware that she was having an affair with their neighbor. The narrative then proceeds to describe the events that have transpired since the birth of the child, which has been approximately 1 week ago. The protagonist has been residing in a hotel room, and has not yet visited his wife. He does not intend to do so in the near future, as she has been contacting him via text and telephone. However, he is unsure of her motivation for doing so, given that he has no intention of leaving his wife. It is evident that I am disinclined to engage in discourse with her or to consider her perspective. I have not yet blocked her, but I have blocked my neighbor, who had taken it upon himself to text me and remind me that my wife was still holding out hope and wanted me to get back to her. I am certain that the only reason he is still with her and attempting to persuade me to forgive her is so that she will at least receive something from the divorce settlement and alimony, given that both of them are essentially unemployed. My wife was a stay-at-home mother. The at-home spouse was appreciated and respected, but she was not merely staying at home and performing domestic duties. She was also engaging in infidelity, which was unforgivable. Before any accusations are made, it should be noted that I did not suggest that she cease working after marriage. In fact, I was quite supportive of her during our courtship, and she had been gainfully employed prior to our relationship. My wife, who I had previously respected and appreciated, began to exhibit behaviors that I found unacceptable. She was not merely staying at home and performing domestic duties, she was also engaging in extramarital affairs. This was a betrayal that I found unforgivable. I do not suggest that she was the sole perpetrator of this infidelity, however, I do believe that she bears some responsibility for the situation. It is important to note that I was not the one who initially suggested that she cease working after marriage. In fact, I was quite supportive of her during our courtship, even though she was employed. However, she made the decision to quit her job and become a homemaker. One of the reasons for my wife's decision to quit her job and take care of the home was that she felt it was her prerogative to do so. I did not oppose this decision, as I was aware that it was her choice. Furthermore, I was aware that I was earning a sufficient income to support my family. I am confident that my lawyer will be able to assist me in avoiding alimony payments once we can prove that my wife was unfaithful. I am hopeful that this will be relatively straightforward, as my neighbor is still struggling to find well-paying work. Given that he is also responsible for his own expenses, as well as those of his wife and child, it is unlikely that he will be able to support them financially. Even with the combined resources of both parties, it is challenging to maintain a comfortable lifestyle. I wish them the best of luck, and I am grateful to be free from this situation. I do not intend to provide them with financial support, nor do I intend to engage in any further communication with my wife. It is my hope that she will recognize this and not waste any more of my time contesting the divorce. However, given the utter lack of intelligence she has demonstrated thus far, it is possible that she might do so. In that case, I am prepared for that as well. The pictures of the emails that had been exchanged on her secret email account are still safely saved on my phone and backed up on. I have a backup of the images on my laptop, so I am not overly concerned even if she decides to delete her account. I am confident that I will be able to retrieve them if necessary. In the worst-case scenario, I would even be willing to pay her alimony. However, I would prefer not to be in the same residence as her. I believe that she should be grateful that I am allowing her time to vacate the house independently. Furthermore, I have forcibly evicted her from the house, as it is registered under my name. I am currently optimistic that this situation will resolve itself in the near future. Additionally, I was correct in my assessment that my wife was an unwise negotiator. She has decided to negotiate the terms of our divorce settlement, despite the fact that I had offered a settlement that was, in essence, the amount that she had spent during the course of our marriage. The aforementioned expenditures, which were incurred during the course of the marriage, even felt generous to me. I am at a loss as to what miracle she anticipates will occur. Nevertheless, I am at peace with the situation. She texted me yesterday to inform me that she had vacated the house. I was pleased to learn that she had probably moved in with her parents, or I was disconcerted to discover that she had merely relocated to a house situated in close proximity to our own, necessitating my continued daily interaction with her and her partner. I even contemplated the possibility of residing in a hotel, but ultimately decided against it, given that this was my own residence and I possessed the prerogative to choose where I lived. I was not inclined to pack up and leave solely because of the discomfort I was experiencing. I did, however, question why my wife had not opted to live with her parents instead, given that residing with our neighbor was likely to have a detrimental impact on the divorce proceedings and was, in fact, exacerbating the situation for her. While perusing the unread messages I had received from numerous individuals, I also observed one from my wife's father. I had not responded to several individuals who had texted me in the previous few days, and his message had also been overlooked. It was a lengthy text expressing his regret regarding the situation. The father expressed strong disapproval of his daughter's actions and conveyed his regret for the situation. His statements resonated with me deeply, eliciting a strong emotional response. Despite this, I managed to maintain composure. He apologized for my wife's behavior and stated that he had severed contact with her following her admission that my wife's actions were irrational and self-defeating. It was evident that she was attempting to contest the divorce, yet her actions were illogical and ultimately self-defeating. It was clear that she lacked the capacity to understand the consequences of her actions. It was plausible that she was either intellectually deficient or possessed of malevolent intentions. I am hopeful that this is not the case, but I am prepared for the possibility that it is. My wife is, in fact, the epitome of the worst kind of person. This living arrangement is bound to lead to complications, and I am certain that they will attempt to make me uncomfortable or jealous. However, I am resolved not to let them succeed in provoking me, as they are likely to do. In light of these considerations, it is evident that I am still saving a considerable sum of money, as I do not have to reside in a hotel. It has been approximately 1 month since the negotiations for my divorce settlement commenced, and thus far, the proceedings have not been particularly favorable for my wife. I have been able to substantiate that she had been engaging in an extramarital affair, which I have documented in Update 3. Consequently, the proceedings have been ongoing for approximately 1 month. Since the negotiations for my divorce settlement began, it has been evident that my wife's position is untenable. I have been able to substantiate my claims of infidelity and, in fact, she has even facilitated my case by cohabiting with the individual I had accused her of having an affair with. Consequently, there is no question regarding the veracity of my assertions. She also made false accusations about my alcoholism, claiming that it was the cause of my sterility and that I had been unfaithful to her. This was despite the fact that I had ceased drinking the previous year, as she was aware. Upon deciding to start trying for a baby, I ceased consuming alcohol. I am uncertain as to why she believed this would be an effective strategy. It was, in my estimation, a rather misguided decision. It appeared that she was merely attempting to salvage a failed plan by resorting to this last-ditch effort. Given her current circumstances, which involved being a mother, it is unlikely that she had the time or inclination to engage in such Machiavellian tactics. Both parties were preoccupied with their respective obligations and responsibilities, and thus, the likelihood of a favorable outcome for the mother in terms of alimony was minimal. It is plausible that the mother informed her partner of this fact, as evidenced by her abrupt eviction from his residence with her child. I was privy to the commotion from their residence, which included a great deal of screaming and shouting. Moments later, I observed my wife and her son being forcibly removed from the premises, while the father engaged in a profane tirade. I proceeded to call her every name in the book, observing the entire incident from my living room. The second I saw him shove my wife out while she was carrying the baby, I rushed out to assist, regardless of any enmity that might have existed between us. I could not allow a poor innocent baby to suffer for something that was not even his fault. By the time I reached his doorstep, he had already slammed it shut, while my wife and her son were both sobbing. I carried the baby and grabbed my wife's hand so that I could lead them back to my house across the street. Then, I called my father. The in-law was present, allowing the woman to be taken home within an hour. He reappeared and took her away, thanking me for my assistance during that 1 hour. My wife had been crying, so I had been calming both mother and child. I considered calling the police, but she persuaded me to let it go, stating that she did not want further trouble. She was apologizing repeatedly for whatever had occurred and told me that she had been so desperate to be with the one she loved that she had lost all sense of self. She expressed remorse for her actions and indicated that she would accept the consequences of her actions. She stated that she would not negotiate further and that the divorce proceedings would be concluded expeditiously. This may be viewed as a positive outcome. However, it is my hope that she will ultimately decide to pursue criminal charges against the perpetrator and seek to heal herself. Nevertheless, I have done my best to be a decent person and I do not regret my actions.